Cool. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, hi, Sam. Hi, Greg.
Hey.
Hey, so there was a person, I'm asking this for, they attended the class, part of the class, I think this past weekend, more of the Sunday session. And they wrote to me, they're in different time zones, so they couldn't attend. They're asking, she's having a lot of memories and events and interactions with people come up after the class. And so that everything that has upset her in the past is coming back to her awareness. Oh, yeah. Any suggestions on how to flesh that out?
Really, give me the idea of like what's the nature of the things going up. Is it just like traumatic things or stressful things, or
I think both.
Conflict? Okay.
Yeah, I think both. People that have hurt her in the past, and there was also a traumatic incident where she injured herself. I'm not sure if that was part of it. I wasn't able to ask too much detail.
Okay, so she has like emotions and memories, or like give me a little bit more information.
Yeah, more emotions and memories
more emotions and memories
upset her in the past, and it's coming back to upset her
again. And had she done things to kind of process these things from the past, or is this kind of the process of her processing?
I think it's a process of processing. It's probably
that's
time that it was probably repressed.
Because a lot of times, it's a coping mechanism. Like it's not anything to like look at as like a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we try to make things go away to just like move forward and everything. And it can be fine in given situations. And then, later it comes to the point where you have to go through and kind of process it. It doesn't mean you have to relive it, but, the strategy of just trying to like make it go away isn't always the thing. You are going to be releasing it. So there might be a little bit of memories coming up, or a little bit of, feelings or emotion. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming, but if it is, I would say like going through and doing some of the work from the psychotherapy class, like especially for trauma, because a lot of times when somebody brings up like what you're mentioning, it's usually trauma related. And so right off the bat, if you just went to like a single oil or so to like say like how can I go through and release this, is helichrysum would be a very good one to work with. I because it happens with meditation too. Like you'll be doing deep meditations, and all of a sudden you get all these like weird feelings of like times where you didn't fit in, or like an old traumatic thing, or it's just we get bombarded with this stuff as we're growing up and functioning in the world. And so I use either poplar or helichrysum pretty consistently just to keep clearing out those, because you could say trauma, and then there's a level of what you would call traumatic stress, like which is kind of what PTSD is. And traumatic stress is something that has pushed you out about so intensely that you've reached a threshold, and it has actually caused a bit of a traumatic response. Then there's actually an even deeper level of stress that doesn't get talked about too much, but it's the term kind of gets loosely coined as like toxic stress. And toxic stress is stress levels to the point where it actually changes or affects your physiology and actually causes like health issues, where like stress is one thing, and then traumatic stress is like much more substantial. And then even toxic stress is more of a physiological impact of stress, and so that one is the hardest to unwind. It can be done, but it's very hard, and I would say that's not something to jump to, because the release is very deep and not always the most comfortable. Like, you kind of want to clear the pipes out a bit before you start getting into that toxic stress, because with that, a bunch of like even more like minor kind of traumas come up, but there's like a boatload of them at once. You know what I mean? Instead of like when we're processing something from an event, we're tackling the event, but you go through and you start tackling the toxic stress, and it could be 10 years of little micro traumas coming out all at once. And in the big picture, it could be even more traumatic than a traumatic event, because you're not having all the time and space between all of it. It's just all kind of in your face a little bit. And so it's almost like you kind of want to like do it in steps. And so like big picture approach would be to use helichrysum would be a really super good choice. Like anytime somebody needs to clear trauma and move past the events, helichrysum is really good.
I'm not sure.
What's it?
I'm not sure if she has that. She may, but
what kind of oils does she have? Let's work maybe a little
oils
bit.
From probably last weekend, and then the angels oils.
Yeah, the angels probably wouldn't.
No.
I mean, the angels go deep and actually would cause more of a release. And so let's see, from last week. Oh, last weekend had poplar in it, didn't it? I think it did.
Okay. All right.
Hold on. Let me look it up real quick. What was it? Journey Within? Let's see what we got here. Yeah, okay, it doesn't have poplar in it, but it does have her use Gilead, and then some emotional release.
Emotional release. Okay.
And then the other thing is threshold. Have her use like threshold, and be sure, if she's new, have her be sure to like flip the little lid up so that she's smelling them. But threshold will help her like not it's not so much that she would get triggered, but it's like when like so much comes up, you reach your threshold, it starts to make you change your thinking or your behavior. And when something like painful or negative is coming in, you're trying to not let that happen, right? You're trying to let it pass without it, causing you to impact like self-esteem, self-image, things like that. You want to be able to let it just pass. And so threshold's super helpful for that, like super, super helpful. And then the Gilead will release physiological emotions. And then the emotional release is releasing to both physiological and psychological emotions. That could be a pretty good 1-2 punch.
And what protocol should I tell her to do?
She could actually probably just inhale. Yeah, like you could have her inhale and just keep her awareness on her heart. If it's a little bit where she feels like she can do a little bit more, Ming Men, back, heart, crown.
Got it.
Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't deviate too much from that. The only thing that I like to do with like trauma victims, and I include myself in that, like not that I have horrible things happening, but when you start to have like big pieces of things come up. Sometimes it's trauma from the workplace, sometimes it's trauma with family stuff. It's not always something you would recognize as trauma. And I think everybody falls into it. And when doing that work with like the Gilead and emotional release and helichrysum, poplar, one of the ones that, like, if you're not sure where to go to the brain. Like, just inhale with your awareness on the brain. Just long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the brain. And the brain will impact the mental body, it will impact the nervous system, and it will impact the chakras and down the spinal cord quite substantially without having to direct it a whole bunch. And so when I'm dealing with people that are new to working with the oils or working with patterns, I keep the patterns really simple. And like a couple go-to places is just the back heart, and then the other one is just have them inhale with their awareness on the brain. And it can be a bunch. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's issues with, I'm still looking at what's in there. After she's done that for a while, have her work with the tuberose after the fact. Yeah.
Like
The thing is like deep psychotherapy is, it's a fancy way of saying connecting with the soul and diminishing identification with the physical, emotional, mental body. And so when you look at it, like each plant, like when you inhale it, has like this certain, like you could call it like a signature of sorts, right? A signature. And like a certain plant, like if you direct it, it has these certain physiological and psychological influences, right? But each plant will have certain areas where if you inhale it on a particular part of the body or like a chakra, it will actually activate the blue pearl, it will activate the heart seed, or will activate the emotional seed in the solar plexus. And so there's a few that doesn't matter where you direct it, right? Aloes is one of those. One that we don't think of like in that realm is cistus. Cistus, like whatever chakra you direct it to, it activates the blue pearl, regardless of where you direct it. Tuberose is really interesting. When you direct it to the crown, the forehead, the ajna, it activates the blue pearl. When you go to the heart and the solar plexus, it activates the physical permanent seed in the heart, in the chest. And then when you do the navel down, all the other chakras, and then also the throat, it activates the emotional seed. And the emotional seed is tied to like bringing those chaotic aspects of ourselves to the light or to the divine. And so tuberose is a really interesting oil for what it does on the different aspects, and so I wouldn't do that right off the bat, but I don't think it could hurt, but I think she'd find probably more relief with the helichrysum or the emotional release and the Gilead. Just clean that stuff up. It's everybody's got it. It's just that some people, have had more difficulty in life. It could be, they haven't had opportunity to process it, or that it's happening like beyond their threshold. There's all kinds of reasons. I've been doing this a while, and I'll still hit times where I get a little overwhelmed with what comes up and out. And so, I mean, nobody's immune from it. And so, like, a good survival kit is that Gilead and emotional release. And, helichrysum is really good for trauma. And then, even things like marjoram can be really good for stress, maybe not toxic levels, but
Mhm.
then there's the PTSD kit. We're going to do the not this coming up weekend, but the following weekend is that free retreat.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
we're
hope she can
going to
attend
go,
that.
yeah, we're going to go deep on abandonment, but I mean, it's a step further in the working with the PTSD oils and things like that. And so,
Mhm.
if she gets a little overwhelmed, tarragon can also be super calming and soothing. Anytime you feel displaced or pushed out of balance or overwhelmed, tarragon is always a good one to go to right off the bat.
Mhm.
Benzoin could work, rose could work, but tarragon's amazing because it calms the gut, it calms the emotional body. You could take it internally, and it's cheap. I mean, it just
Yes.
really,
And it's delicious.
it's delicious. Yeah. Like, I mean, who doesn't love some tarragon?
Yeah.
And so
Tarragon tea is my favorite.
yeah. And so, I mean, I still, like, a lot of times after doing intense meditation, I put a bunch of tarragon on my feet sometimes, just because, like, I feel peaceful, but at some point that's going to agitate the lower emotions in the physical body because of, a stronger connection. And so, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold, and on top of that, it's inexpensive. And
Speaking
so,
of tarragon, Greg, I
Mhm.
recommended that to one of my clients to, just for for relaxation and calming
Mhm.
down the agitation in their body. And then they read somewhere that it causes cancer. I said, no, how can you?
No,
Like,
there's
don't believe everything you
yeah, there's a few things that, like, if you take the oils internally, can potentially be that way, but there are things that you don't take internally because they're too strong and toxic to take internally anyway. Like, if you use them on your skin, tarragon's not even in that realm. But
I know. Put it
the
on
one,
chicken, right?
yeah, yeah. The one that is most known is you would have to take big dosages over a long period of time, but
Mhm.
calamus taken internally over a period of time has produced tumors in mice. But I mean, it was like massive dosages over a really long period of time. They did it through the skin or through inhalation, and nothing
Mhm.
happened. So it was only through ingestion. And
I see.
it's calamus isn't something you take internal. Like, it's too strong. You can take the herb, but the herb doesn't do that. It's because the oil is, probably 50 to 100 times stronger than the herb. So,
Right.
so
Yeah.
so see if those help her. And a lot of times it's probably the solar plexus, but it's probably some of the lower centers as well. And so, that transmutation pattern will clean things up. Even if she doesn't do it with oils, if she does the breathing and does those patterns, she'll probably find relief, but the oils will make it happen faster.
Thank you. Can
Yeah.
I ask a couple product
Yeah,
questions,
of course.
Greg?
Yeah.
Absinthium. I love absinthium, and then I ordered the incense. When would I use the incense?
I use excuse me. I find it to be very calming and soothing, and so I either do it right when I wake up or right when I'm going to bed.
Okay.
You could use it in meditation, but it's really super calming and soothing, and it puts you in a little bit of at least me, I don't know,
Mhm.
like not like an altered state, but like I step out of my head. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of leave the thoughts or the stresses of the day, and I just start kind of going into more of a contemplative kind of state.
Right.
So a lot of times I burn it at night.
Oh, okay. Great. I love absinthium and salt
Yeah.
baths. It's so hard to leave the
Oh,
bathtub.
it is one of the best things for exhaustion, by the way.
Yes.
It's really good for exhaustion.
It's so
And
hard to leave the tub though when you're in there.
yeah. We do a thing like when we get up in the morning, like we have our cup of coffee, we burn a couple sticks of incense, and I still kind of do like something like the absinthium or the aloe sea or something, just to kind of still linger in that dream state for a little bit before I get into the work time. And it just seems to like set the tone for the day.
Nice. And armor, is that something good to put on yourself before a flight?
Good to use for a flight, good when you're in groups of people, but it's also very good for re-educating the immune system in general. So you could be using that on a daily basis. You could put it on your wrist, on your chest. You could even put it on the bottom of your feet if you want, but you could be using that pretty regular. I mean, it keeps the immune system nice and strong, and it keeps it from being too like hyper reactive. That's the thing that we want to prevent. Like when we're in situations where, especially when like people being aggressive to us, or just you could say aggression of some sorts. It could even be like in emails and digitally. It doesn't even have to be like a person. The tendency is for your immune system to become hyperreactive. And so it's a way to keep rebooting and resetting your immune system so that your immune system doesn't get depleted and exhausted. It's strengthening to the immune system and keeps like kind of like you could say almost like relaxing the immune system so that when the time comes, it's ready to give its full effort to whatever is going on. And so, I rotate, like when we travel, I rotate between immune support and armor and panacea. And I take Monarda or Thyme when we travel. And, it seems to be doing it, because we really didn't. I mean, we took a couple months off in the summertime just because the body was getting tired, but we really didn't stop traveling all through the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, we didn't travel as much, but we were still traveling through the whole thing. And we never really had issues. I mean, we were always careful, and if we saw somebody being sick, we stayed away from them in the airport or something. But I really think the oils are a good way to protect yourself in these crazy times.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Greg.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Sam.
Tell your husband.
Letty. I will. Thank you.
Pet those doggies.
Yes. Actually, the one of the doggies loved the tarragon rub on the back. And he
tremendous. Yeah.
He's better. Thanks, Greg.
You're so.
And go ahead, Sahajananda, then Kathy.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. This is sort of almost relates to a little bit of what you were talking about just now. I'm asking a basic question. I don't know much about patterns. I know that we do the patterns, but I don't understand why we do certain patterns, and some of them have names and some don't. And
yeah, some of them have names because I've taken the time to name them, and some of them they can be used in a lot of different ways. And I think Letty was adding them up, and we have almost 200 patterns.
wow.
And so, I think I'm going to have to break out some dice and just start rolling dice to come up with names for something. But so sometimes there's patterns that we use a lot, and then there's patterns that are specific to something. And so the idea would be that, each of the energy centers of the chakras has a specific physical function, psychological function, and it has like a spiritual virtue that we're trying to cultivate as we go through our life. And so depending on how you sequence the chakra or the patterns, we're doing it to produce a certain result. Just like when you take two oils and you blend them together, you know, they might have very different properties. And as you blend them together, you might think like, oh, they each bring this property to it and it will do, you know, more than they will by themselves. But what happens is when you blend the two oils together, they become a new substance. And a lot of times they lose the properties of what they did individually because now they're part of this new like unit of this blended oil, and they do something can be very, very different than what they would normally do. And so the same idea happens with chakras. When we start to do specific sequences or patterns, it's to produce a certain, you know, physiological approach, a certain psychological, or even spiritual. And a lot of the things that we do, I try to always address the physiology, psychology, and esoteric components all at once. And so there really is not a separation between mind, body, and spirit. It's just different parts of the spectrum. So a lot of times we're doing the specific sequences to like target and make particular shifts, because if you start going outside those parameters, like say with a particular blend, you know, it still might have an impact, but it might make the body start doing other things, or it might start having you process something emotionally or mentally. And so the patterns are to specifically target something to produce a specific result. And so the chakras involved are important, and a lot of times the sequencing is important because it's setting up the next step. And so yeah, it's almost like having a recipe for using the oils, you know, to not just inhale them. Like if you think about it from a point of view of, like when you look at something from like a symptom-oriented approach, part of what you're doing is you're trying to direct the oil to what the body or the psyche needs for that treatment. You know, you go, okay, this oil works really well for this particular condition, so I'm going to use this to try to treat this condition. So in a way, what you're doing is you're starting to direct that oil to the particular condition, right? Then we take it a step further and we go, okay, if I think about the condition, or if I think about a part of my body as I inhale it, you're getting the oil molecules in the body, so you get the chemistry in your body, you know, you get the physical effect, but now you're starting to direct the energy of the plant to different parts of your body. And then when you start to move it to the energy centers, that even steps it up even another notch, because now you're increasing the body's ability to integrate it and to kick off the old stagnant energy. You know, basically you're trying to infuse an area with life force to accelerate the healing. So now you're reflecting on energy centers as you inhale, and you're directing it even further. And then when you start to take it through sequences, it even takes it deeper than that. And, you know, a good example of that would be if you just inhale hyssop, you know, it's very cleansing, it's very purifying, it can clean up thought forms, it deepens the breath, it has an effect on the medulla, you know, it does things for pain management, you know, it does all these wonderful things. But there are certain patterns that if you run the hyssop through the particular pattern, all of a sudden it has capabilities of healing something that it didn't have on its own. And so if there are certain patterns that you do with hyssop, it actually can help to alleviate the agitation and some of the emotional trauma from abandonment. But if you just inhale hyssop, it doesn't do it. Like even if you direct it to parts of your body, it doesn't do it. You have to take it through the sequencing. And so you're taking on the characteristic of the character of the plant, and then you're applying it in different ways so that the plant can perform in ways that it wouldn't do on its own. You know, if you think about like a person, you know, you take a person who's just doing a normal job, they you know, they'll do it well and everything, but you put them in different situations where they really have to problem solve and figure it out, and sometimes it really brings out a different side of that person because they never got stimulated in that way, they never got like challenged in that way. The plants are the same. Like if you can direct them in ways that are different than just normal usage, you really step out of the box of what they can do, and you kind of challenge them to do something different. And there's a bigger, wider variation of things that they can treat because of how you direct it. And so, yeah, I mean, plants are really interesting, especially inhaling them. You know, you could say that somewhat by, you know, ingesting herbs and things, but there's something about the inhalation where it really impacts the brain and impacts the limbic system, the olfactory system, and the sense of smell is a very quick way to shift thought processes and behaviors and upgrade them very, very quickly. So if you look back over you know, several centuries, you know, actually over thousands of years, in healing processes and ceremony, they always would utilize like the burning of incense, the burning of plants, you know, crushing plants, having the person smell plants, and part of it is a way to shift the physiology and the psyche very, very quickly. And then to take it a step further and start directing it through patterns, it's like doing that, but on steroids.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's when you think about what you're saying, it's just sort of mind blowing, you know.
I mean,
it's
plants are amazing. Like they really, really are. I mean, you know, in shamanic traditions, they refer to plants as teachers, you know, plant teachers. And I remember when I first got exposed to that, I was like, you know, being the city boy, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, it seems like a little bit of a odd thing to say. But as I started going down the rabbit hole, it's a little bit humbling how much plants teach us. You know, if you really kind of commune with them, if you interact with them, if you open up, kind of a communication is just, you know, the inhalation and directing them in your body and letting them do what they do. I mean, they open up things that a lot of times we wouldn't do ourselves with our own thought processes. You know, I find them really fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, like all through all the traditions, you know, people sit and meditate, or they're sitting in the temple and they're burning incense. You know, I always, when I was younger, I always thought that's kind of weird that almost every tradition does like some form of that. And the more that I know about plants, it's like, it's genius. It's total genius that, you know, whatever the tradition is, they're doing some form of that. You know, it makes the practice, whatever it is, more potent. And then different practices, depending on if they're more affiliated with divine love or creative destruction, you know, like the ascetics, like the Shiva tradition, for example, you know, they would burn different things to help facilitate the energy or devotion to that practice or that deity. You know, there's not a lot of practices that do things, a devotional practice to divine intelligence. I mean, there are some, but they're not as common, but they are around. And so even with that, you know, the cultivation of light and the sorts, I mean, definitely can be augmented with the use of plants like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So So just one more question
Sure. Yeah.
about that. So did you come up with these patterns yourself, or did they come down from the?
Yeah. Well, some of them were patterns that I had been working long time ago, and so what would happen was in clinical applications when we were treating different conditions, I would start using different patterns because, like, here we're doing it with energy centers and everything, but in my early days, we would even do a series of because I would work with like osteopaths and things, and we would do a series of manipulations where instead of just going to the body and manipulating something, we would do these manipulations and positional release. You know, it was like, you know, a chiropractor is high velocity manipulations. We would do low velocity where we put the body in a position and let it be there for a period of time to allow the body to shift. And so we would do the manipulations and sequences. And we started, me and this one osteopath, which I'm so embarrassed I cannot remember his name. We started treating psychological issues with the physical manipulations, and we're getting really good results. Like, you know, we were using the psychology, you know, forms to evaluate somebody. We'd treat them for a while, and then we'd, you know, follow up with the forms again just to see progress and everything. And we were getting really good results. No talk therapy was done at all. It was all just manipulation. And so then the next phase was I started kind of getting the idea that we could treat archetypal patterns with physical manipulation. Like, I was convinced, and we actually started doing it, and it started working so well that the osteopath actually freaked out, and he said, this is so out of the box that he was concerned that his peers wouldn't embrace it and would think he was, I think the word he used was nut job. And so, you know, we kind of parted ways. Like, he didn't want to do any of it anymore. And so, you know, I still did it for a little while, but, you know, I moved on to other things. But the patterns were always based on like clinical applications. So they would get refined over a period of time. And then I did work with an organization called Pranic Healing. And so I had time with the founder, and he did a lot of pattern oriented work as well. So I had done, there was these forms that were kind of similar to it was osteopathic manipulation, but it was almost like doing acupuncture without needles, but with osteopathic manipulation. It's not very common in the US, but so everything was treatment oriented. We always had recipes. And so everything that I always did was very recipe oriented. And so, yeah, it just translates to when we're working with the oils, like, you know, in my mind is like, why not follow, you know, a recipe for how to apply it as well as the recipe of how to make the blend, you know, everything can be a recipe.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're so welcome.
A lot to think about.
Yeah.
And then go ahead, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi. I had a tooth unexpectedly pulled yesterday, and it's the third one in a year. So it set me into a bit of a depression, like losing all my teeth.
Right. I hear you.
You know, and what to do about it and all that, and you know, just in a funk. So I didn't know if there's some recommendation. I mean, the tooth is fine. I'm not in any pain. It was a little painful to get it pulled, but anyway, I'm just finding myself, you know, having a hard time getting energy and going and get out of these. thoughts.
So it was because of an abscess or like it was cracked or what was happening?
No, actually, I started with this dentist. He's a biological dentist, and I started there to get out the mercury out of my teeth because, I heard that's very toxic. So the first thing he found was an abscess. That was the first tooth a year ago that I got pulled. And then another tooth was creating some problems. We did an x-ray and it looked like the tooth was dying or had some problems. And so I've learned and studied that root canals really aren't the solution, that they'll eventually get infected again. So I just said, you might as well pull it rather than do a root canal, because I've had a couple root canals and those teeth ended up getting pulled because, they just won't last. It cracked and whatnot. So I thought, well, why go through all the double expense? So this one, I had they were getting the mercury removed, but when they took it out, it was pretty deep. It was close to the nerves. They put it temporary in November. And so I went back a week ago to get the permanent. And after the permanent, the tooth just went south. So a week later, I'm back at the dentist saying something's wrong. He took an x-ray. Sure enough, the tooth was dying. I don't know. It was inflamed. Something was inflamed. He had an itis, something itis. He didn't have to give me antibiotics or anything. I didn't really have an infection. But so there you go. And after spending a lot of money to get the permanent cap a week before, I was depressed about that, although he didn't charge me for pulling it. I mean, I thought that was actually pretty appropriate for the fact that I spent
that was nice of it.
So I guess that caused a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I did this and now it's there and now I lost another tooth. And, I'm just feeling a bit disempowered.
So let's talk about two things, right? So let's talk about your mouth for a second. And then the second one, let's talk about like you also feeling a little bit, frustrated or like you said, disempowered. Right? So one of the things that can get overlooked sometimes with the mouth is lymphatic function. And so one of the easy ways to it's not quick, but over a period of time of treatment, it can change a little bit of the dynamic in the mouth. You're basically detoxifying the tissue in the mouth and hoping to stimulate lymphatic function. An area that gets impacted by stagnant lymph is actually the roof of your mouth. We don't really think of that, but it actually can even impact your sinuses. And so what I have people do sometimes is take I like to use cypress, like put several drops, like 5-6 drops of cypress in a little bit of water. And you can just swish it around a whole bunch. Sometimes people will do that also with like coconut oil or like a sesame oil, put a bunch of drops of the cypress in and then just really kind of swish it around in the mouth, get it in and around the gums. And the thing is cypress is really good for what they call accumulations, which is basically a fancy way of saying stagnant lymph. And so it will firm up the gums. It will clean up the gums a little bit. Even sometimes when the gums get really inflamed, sometimes the teeth will start to get a little bit loose. And if you use cypress just for even a short amount of time, it cleans it up and actually firms the gums up to hold the teeth better. And so I would use cypress pretty regularly on the mouth.
Like daily?
Yeah, I would use it daily, and you could use it morning and night. Just
and for weeks on end, or is there?
You could use it for months and years. You could use it for. Cypress is so gentle on the body that you could really be okay with it for long periods of time. Cinnamon will increase circulation, but it's sometimes people will go to something that has a strong scent to also freshen the breath. So something like cinnamon or peppermint, spearmint. They're all good, but I really like the effect of cypress.
Now, is there more than one kind of cypress? Because sometimes I'm confused when I order oils if there's.
Any of the cypresses should work. We do have a new cypress on there that's a blue cypress. It would work, but I would probably just do the regular cypress.
Just
Like,
when I go to order
yeah.
it, I'm just gonna go cypress.
Yeah, just get some cypress. Yeah,
Okay.
just regular, just plain old generic cypress.
Now, one
Yeah.
thing is, if you remember, I had the facial pain, which
Yeah,
is
oh, yeah.
so much better. So there was a period where I didn't take proper care of my teeth because it hurt so much to brush.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah, yeah.
now I'm making up for that. So it's not like
Yeah.
a shock. It's just like,
Right.
I'm making progress in one area and then I go backwards in another area. So I'm all, now would you use the oil like sesame or coconut oil over water, or it doesn't matter?
I do both. Like most times I do it with like water, or we have this like it's kind of like a mouthwash, but it doesn't have a lot of alcohol in it. And I put the cypress in that and then, swish it around, or I just do water. But every once in a while, I'll do it with sesame oil.
Okay. Is there a special
coconut
sesame oil? Or
No,
because I worry the
just-
oils, I'd get the wrong kind sometimes or not pure enough.
Just get for something where you're putting it in your mouth, you could just get it from the grocery store. Like
Okay.
go to the cooking oil section, and there's usually like little bottles of like sesame oil or
Well, I'll go to Whole Foods or something like that.
yeah. You could just use something like that, or you could use coconut oil too. For me, when I was doing it a while ago, it was always sesame oil. Sesame oil just by itself is a lymphatic stimulant as well. So that's why I like to use the sesame
Okay.
oil. Like sesame oil is such a good lymphatic stimulant. It's almost as potent as essential oils. It's really good for your body. Really, really,
I love to cook in it. It has a good.
Yeah. It has a good taste, but the oil that you get in the health food store has actually been filtered more than the oil that you cook with. And so they take out the food particles so it doesn't clog the pores. And so they don't really filter it in a way and package it in a way that's for ingestion. But, half the time that's the oil that I use. We don't go buy cooking sesame oil. I'm not swallowing it. I just spit it out when I'm done. And so, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. They don't process the cooking oil as much because the food particle or the particles give the food flavor, but it would be what clogs the pores. In your mouth, it doesn't matter, but like on your skin, it would clog pores. So.
Okay, and then for the depression about just feeling so.
Yeah, so I would use that. Were you in the class last weekend? Did you have?
No, I'm in the one coming up this weekend.
Okay,
though.
so the Gilead blend could work. Lower emotion. Because some of it is just like a lower emotional response, and so coming up. Let me see what's the kit in that one.
I think I just got the kit from this weekend, and I think there's a Gilead. I don't know if there's a blend.
Oh yeah, then inhale the Gilead. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't say
just open
blend,
that
but
up.
it's Gilead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there probably is. So I would use that.
No, I have a lot of oils, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else could be a thing to. Do you have spikenard?
I do.
I would go back and forth between the Gilead and the spikenard.
Just
wouldn't have thought
inhaling.
that. Yeah, just inhaling. Yeah, I think the spikenard would actually be calming and soothing, and
I like spikenard. There's something that draws me
boy,
to it.
no joke. I love me some spikenard.
And I have a magnesium spikenard that came in one of the kits at one thing, and I put that on my feet at night. I just
That's great. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
even that, like you could even do that at night, for this, because part of what that does is it calms down the physiological emotions. And so, the thing with physiological emotions, we never escape them. Like we never do. Like, as long as you're in a body, you're going to have to, mop that floor from time to time. And so the spikenard keeps things from being produced as much. And then the Gilead is the actual mop. Like, you go through and just mop things up. And,
Now, should I focus on any scent or anything, or just straight in?
For that one, I would actually focus on that cranial pattern.
Cranial pattern?
Yeah, like it's a common one we use.
Okay, I'm sure it's in, because I've taken a lot of the classes. So.
Yeah, maybe Letty can post it right now if she's on. Yeah, yeah. Letty's so good. I think she posts things before I even say them sometimes.
Oh, I know. The other thing, all of a sudden the last couple of days, I have loose stools, and that doesn't like me. And of course, then on top of the tooth and everything else, I'm going, okay, but I got a pathogen. What's going on?
Yeah. I try taking some galbanum, a little bit of galbanum internally, or a little bit of cinnamon internally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just a couple
cinnamon,
drops of
take
water?
it in water. Yeah, take it in water because it will burn your lips.
Okay. So a couple drops
But
of either
yeah.
one of those, or interchange
Yeah,
them?
either way. Cinnamon's a little bit more stimulating, but it usually will knock out the diarrhea, the loose stool, and then the galbanum can do it sometimes as well.
I've been taking galbanum quite a bit for pain, because you said that's just a good overall.
Real good one to take for pain management.
And then I was taking, I haven't done it recently, is Palmarosa, because I was thinking you said that was good for intestines, but the other two would be better for this.
Yeah, Palmarosa is better for improving the like the healthy flora in the digestive tract. And so it might prevent the loose stools, but it wouldn't necessarily stop them, like, while they're happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is my last question, but it's like, there's so many patterns, so many oils. I have like 4 boxes, wooden boxes of oils now. And I just get stuck in, anytime something happens, there's something to fix. Not like overall inherently the body wants to heal itself, and I'm really trying to move forward. Like, I'm not falling apart. So the being overdoing, is there just a basic oil and basic pattern to kind of just
do like some maintenance?
Yeah, just to get me out of this constant, like, oh no, there's something to fix. Like I have a magnifying glass about everything.
Yeah.
After 20 years of face pain, you can imagine I've
developed I bet. I can imagine. One oil that's a really good, like, it's very balancing to the body. It helps to like harmonize the different systems, and it when there seems to be a lot of different things going on, it kind of directs the body in a way that it's almost like the body kind of starts to address the things depending on how critical they are. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when there's a bunch of things going on, the body gets a little bit scattered in what it tries to do. And so it's Rosemary Verbena.
Okay, I have that.
Rosemary Verbena, start taking a few drops internally, and it's a way to just balance the body out and regulate the body, and it improves function, it improves circulation to the brain, it very much improves function of the liver. There's a lot of things that it does, and it's pretty gentle. It's pretty darn gentle.
So a couple drops daily in water.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I just feel today I was struggling.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like, for me, sometimes it's the wear and tear of travel can put the body where I just like, it's like, I need something, like I need a spa weekend or something. And, I'll do some big dosages of oils for a few days or a week or something. And I mean, it's like, it's a game changer. Like it not only snaps me out of it, but I feel better and stronger than I did, you know, before I started feeling like worn down, you know.
Mhm.
You know, when I was younger, I could do it no problem. But as I get older, I don't quite bounce back like I used to.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
how I feel.
it's like it takes a little more effort to pull me out of stuff these days, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
mainly my
every,
thing of like focusing on all that's wrong rather than all that's
Yeah.
right is
Yeah.
just, so anyway,
but
thank
but I will say, you know, doing things like the things that we've already talked about for you, using things like bay laurel is also can be very good. Another one is that you could use for like what you're talking about is it's one that we don't really talk about very much. It's Ravensara, like Raven Sarah.
I have that. Yeah.
Yeah, super good. Like they what they refer to Ravensara as like is a good terrain treatment, which means it doesn't really do a whole lot of things super specific for conditions, but it's very good for strengthening and improving body function and like the internal environment of the body. And so Ravensara is a very strong antiviral. It's very good for increasing energy levels in the body, which also helps the body to heal. And it just starts regulating things in the body. And so you can do actually topically pretty big dosages of that. And then internally, you know, you can take 4 or 5 drops in water. And I mean, it will increase your energy levels a bit without being stimulating like caffeine would. You know,
Okay. So
when I was working really long days, like after about 10 hours, I was like, man, I need a cup of coffee or something. And I would do 4 or 5 drops of Ravensara, and I mean, it would push me through the remaining few hours that I had.
in water.
Yep.
Now, would I rotate like Rosemary Verbena, Bay Laurel, and Ravensara like different days, or?
Yeah, you could rotate them. I would probably do the Rosemary Verbena every day.
Every day.
And then keep doing it every day. And even if you just did the Ravensara, put like 6-8 drops on your skin, on your wrist, and just rub it together. Or you could take a few drops internally as well from time to time.
Okay.
I mean, there's times where I put 50 or 60 drops on my back or something. And,
Okay.
you know, that's just strengthen the body. And if I'm getting ready to travel or something, I'll usually do that with Bay Laurel or Ravensara. And it keeps the body feeling good and strong.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
You're so welcome.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, Greg.
Hey.
I was looking at the protocol that you put in the newsletter, and I have most of those, but I don't have Nimbus or Master Blend, which I can order, obviously. But I was wondering, are there substitutes that are equally
Yeah, we can
good?
give you a substitute. Let me look up what's in those. I mean, the Master's Blend, you could actually probably just substitute lavender. I mean, it wouldn't be as strong, but it would still work.
Okay.
Lavender would work, and then the Nimbus. Blue cypress, that's all fruit. That one's a little bit of a funky one. Mace. Why don't you try spikenard for that?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome.
Is
Idaho tansy would work as well, but spikenard or Idaho tansy.
I don't have Idaho tansy.
Yeah,
Is that
most
just
of them are pretty abstract oils in that blend. Spikenard is the one you probably have.
So is that just one that would be a good one to just go ahead and order?
I tell you, it's really deeply releasing, like energy body wise. you have these different layers in your etheric body, for the physical body. And so each layer kind of has like a characteristics of sorts. And the most inner one is really the part that has to do with the physical body. It has to do with solid matter, and it's the hardest one to treat. And it took me a while to be able to treat it the way I wanted to with oils. I could do it with healing, but I couldn't really ever find it with the oils. And so, that blend is a few years of playing with different combinations until I could get it right. And anytime you're trying to release something deeply psychologically or make a shift in your physiology that is different than you're trying to change your physiology, usually like a health issue or something, that's the go-to one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one, if you didn't have that, the layer right before that is affected by Solomon's hyssop. That's the one that I used for so long for that, but the nimbus is even stronger. Like if you do each of those 7 layers, do that, and then take a nice salt bath with just kind of anything, like maybe like some marjoram or basil or something, and you'll sleep really good.
Go ahead, Dorothy.
Hey, Dorothy. How are you?
Hey, I wanted to ask about 2 oils, the Central Channel blend. You put it in a roller ball. So I wondered, where would we apply that?
Thumb webs.
Oh,
Thumb webs,
okay.
and also you could do the heart.
Okay.
Actually, I say that, and where else you could put it is the ajna.
Okay. Also the viscosity. Would you use that really in a layered approach with other things like the
It will stand on its
pepper
own.
or what?
It will stand on its own very easily. So you could put it on the body neat, especially on areas that are tight or need to be unwound a bit. Areas where there needs to be more lymph moving, like so, if an area is achy or tight, or there's times where pain kind of comes and goes. So you're stimulating the movement of lymph. You're thinning down the thickness or the viscosity of the lymph to allow it to move through the vessels much easier. And it's got a bunch of the different peppers in it, so it helps to stimulate the movement. And then the byproduct of all that is it actually releases the fascia, which is what wraps around like muscles, groups of muscle fibers, and individual muscle fibers. And so sometimes when you're trying to relax a muscle, for example, sometimes it can only relax in the space that the fascia allows it to relax, right? So if the space is like this, it only can release that much. But if the fascia releases like this, it can relax more. And so it has antispasmodic properties to it. And so you're kind of getting the best of lymphatic movement, antispasmodic, and fascial release all in one.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks, Dorothy. We'll be in Birmingham.
Yes, we're looking forward to it.
For the deep aura cleanse, can you do it every day with?
You can, but it's pretty intense. And so I've done it like 3 or 4 days in a row, and then I got to give myself a break a little bit. I would say you can do it if you want to try it every day, you could, but I mean, like I'd sit down and like maybe do like a little half-hour session, 20-minute session where you do it like once a week and then take a nice salt bath. And I mean, that would be like doing a healing session on yourself. And so, you know, we're coming up with a way to standardize ways of treating people for the students to, you know, do practitioner work with you know, clients and things like that. And that particular protocol could be used in any healing modality, you know, before or after. I would probably do it before just because it would make the modality work better, but you could do it before or after, or it could be a healing session unto itself.
Would there be a substitute for aura cleanse?
Yeah, let's look. You could use okay, so there's a rosemary that's very like a little bit more cleansing than some of the other rosemaries, and that's Tuscan blue rosemary. A little bit of a better etheric cleanser than some of the other ones. You could probably get away with Rosemary Verbena in there, but the other one you could use is rue. Like rue would work. You know, it's not going to be as strong as the blend, but it still would work. Almavis Naga if you had it, but most of you guys are not going to have it unless it came in a kit or something for you guys. Most of the Almavis Naga that we use is in blends.
And just as a reminder, guys, you can type into the chat any questions or anything. I did not realize last weekend's Q&A didn't get posted on YouTube yet. Let me look at that. I got them uploaded, so we'll check on that for you. But you can always unmute yourself. You can type in the chat. Question for teeth mouthwash. Did you suggest blend the cypress with sesame or coconut oil, or do them separately?
You could blend them. I wouldn't say that that's like a mouthwash. I would say that's like a mouth treatment. Like if you're doing mouthwash just to like kind of clean up the mouth and do it for like oral hygiene, you still could use the cypress, but I would probably do it in water instead of the sesame oil. The other one that's always really good for the mouth is clove oil. Clove is super antibacterial, very good for reducing infections in the mouth, treating infections in the mouth, and also reduces sensitivity. It's also a pain reliever for the mouth. And so you could put a couple of drops in water and use it as a mouthwash as well. And that one would also be a little bit, like a breath freshener of sorts. You know, it's not minty, but it's still a breath freshener. And so, you could use that on a daily basis as a mouthwash. Yeah, sure. Another one that's gotten used over the years was fennel. Fennel helps to like move things in the mouth and fluids and things, and so you could use fennel as well. I tend to go to cypress and clove.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, Greg. My question is about rosemary. I was giving my husband rosemary. Unfortunately, it raised his blood pressure. And I was wondering if Rosemary Verbena had that, also did that.
Yeah, it doesn't always do that. Like, how much did his blood pressure go up? Like 5-10 points, or did it go up more?
It was about 5, both systolic and diastolic.
Yeah. So what were you giving him rosemary for? What were you trying to treat?
Well, memory, right now I can't remember. There were 2 or 3 things that it looked like would help him.
Mhm,
And then when his blood pressure went up, I looked it up
mhm.
and discovered that it can raise blood pressure.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, probably 20 or 30% of the time. It usually doesn't last for a super long period of time, but I mean, it's still, if the blood pressure is already a little bit high, like I usually try to find other ways of treating it,
Mhm.
Especially if you're doing it over a prolonged period of time.
Mhm.
One of the other things that can be done is like cinnamon, but cinnamon will actually raise the blood pressure a little bit as well. You're trying to treat like memory.
And,
How about
and
how about
general energy.
in energy?
Mhm.
How about if we have you shift from rosemary and switch over to basil?
He also takes basil.
Does he? And
Uh-huh.
is that helping him or?
Yes, he thinks it's helping his memory. I mean,
Yeah.
he's pretty
Well,
impressed with that.
it's a mental stimulant. It's a
Uh-huh.
cerebral stimulant, and so it improves function. Okay, so he's doing that.
I just didn't know if the verbena had a different
If
effect.
he's reacting to normal rosemary, the verbena would probably do it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me think this out for a second. Hmm.
Could you recommend just another energy booster?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think out.
Oh.
I because like I'd like to see it like boost his energy, but then at the same time still improve like mental function and I'll go back to the thing that I was saying a little bit earlier with the Ravensara.
Ravensara?
Yeah, like so there's 2 plants that for some reason got named almost identically.
Uh-huh.
There's Ravensara and then Ravent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get
This
the
one's
one that's Raven.
Ravene.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, Ravensara. Yeah, get that one. It shouldn't raise the blood pressure.
Okay.
And then it should increase and improve energy levels, but not like a way that's like stimulating. And then the other thing that can always be used to improve energy levels, especially done over a period of time rather than trying to do it in like a day or two, cinnamon would do it like in a day or two, right? But it would also probably raise his blood pressure. If the rosemary made his blood pressure go up, the cinnamon would make it go up probably 5 to 10 points. A lot of times it only lasts for like a couple hours, but still, let's not do that. And so get a gentle form of thyme, like, or maybe you already have one, like thyme linalool, geranol, thuyonol.
Right.
Yeah, like a lot of times what we've used in the past is linalool. It's gentle enough that you could use with a child, where like some of the regular times are a little bit too intense for a child.
Uh-huh.
And so the thuyonol and the geranol would fall into that same realm. And they're very good for strengthening the body, giving the body energy without being overstimulating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And so that's a good way to do it. Boost the immune system and improve circulation. They're not quite the cephalic, which means like moving blood to the brain like rosemary, but they still improve circulation.
But
And
basil
so-
does that anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah. The basil definitely stimulates mental functions and brain function.
And I understand that Revansar is a really good antiviral.
Really good. It's back in the 80s, late 80s, when they were treating HIV, when they really didn't have good treatments for HIV back in the day, so they were looking at viral loads, and these were medical aromatherapists in France are usually physicians. So these were guys who were testing and looking at the viral loads, and then they would give large dosages of certain plants, and then they would measure it like literally the next day.
Mhm.
And the three plants that they used were bay laurel, Ravensara, and then Eucalyptus radiata. And all three of them dropped the viral load substantially, and to almost zero. It didn't cure the condition, but it dropped the viral load so that they weren't in crisis. And so Ravensara is very good antiviral. It's not overstimulating. It's strengthening to the body. It does a lot of terrain type treatment for the body. It's a solid treatment. I think sometimes it falls to the wayside because it's not great for like specific conditions, but it's great for general vitality.
Oh, okay.
And so, a lot of times we don't think of stuff like that until, the body's really depleted or something. If he's dealing with exhaustion, one of the best things for exhaustion is absinthium. I would say like maybe a bath or put several drops of that on his wrist. But if it's just like, overall just trying to keep energy levels up and everything, the thyme, the Ravensara, and the other thing, the basil is good. One of the things that would happen after when I was treating a lot of whiplash patients, one of the things that would happen, it wasn't immediate. It would usually happen, about 6 weeks, 8 weeks out from the accident. They would start to have sleep disturbances, and then they would start to be fatigued, and they would start to have energy level issues. And so I gave them a concoction of Ravensara, thyme linalool, with just a hint of oregano. And the oregano was to help reset the immune system. And all of that, it's relatively gentle, because it was just a minute amount of oregano. It was all very gentle. It was very strengthening. Their energy levels would come back, especially if they did it daily. Like after about a week, they would feel like a lot better, a lot stronger. And eventually what would happen is it would start to regulate even their sleep cycles, because they had more energy during the day, they could function better. And then when they went to bed at night, they were tired and their body could fall asleep. Or sometimes when you're exhausted, it's hard for you to let go and actually go to sleep. Like sometimes when you're really, really tired, you actually don't really sleep that good. And so by going through and doing that, they would actually regulate both their sleep and their actions and activity during the day. And, we didn't have to deal with a lot of the fatigue issues that would set in if we hadn't treated that. And so it can be used over a long period of time. Like, it could be something that's used for years.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
For the nimbus, would you take it internal?
No, just inhale it. Yeah, inhale it. And I think we did anytime, because you're cleaning up the energy body. So you're going through and cleaning up the energy body. Start with the liver. The liver is tied to your aura, right? And then from there, do the heart, navel, the crown, and that flushes the stuff out of your aura, your energy body. So first liver, and then heart, navel, crown. You know, I use it, you know, say somebody was in situations where they're, we'll call it politely, where they're in, say, the workplace, where there's a lot of competition, which is a polite way of saying there is the potential for a lot of psychic kind of attack kind of stuff. You know, it's just aggression and people, you know, grinding on people. And, you know, you go through and you clean it up, but sometimes there's still just, even though you clean it up and you feel better, there's still something left. A lot of times it's stuff that's stuck in that inner part of the aura, and that nimbus will flush it out. You know, so we'll flush out old leftover energies that are from other people being hostile towards you.
On the website, you have chakras roller and chakra root cleanser roller ball. What's the difference, and when do you use these two?
So chakra root cleanser is a lymphatic stimulant, and it's good for treating lymphatic issues, especially deep lymphatic issues. It's also good for bringing things from the unconscious and releasing them. So it's a good psychological healer, and then it does clean the root of the chakra, and all of the chakras, not just the basic chakra. It cleans the root of all the chakras, and then on top of all of that, it also cleans up one of the layers of the aura. The blend chakras is actually for purifying the actual energy center itself, you know, the chakra itself, and it depends on where you direct it. So if you put it on your crown, it cleans the crown. If you put it on your ajna, it cleans the ajna. If you put it on your throat, it cleans the throat. So.
I think that answers how you use them each then. Yeah.
So the chakras, you could inhale on a chakra, or you could actually dab it on the chakras. You could also take a salt bath with it. You know, same with a chakra root cleanser. Yeah.
Can you please tell me about the Aura Deep Cleanse Kit and how it can combine with last week's class?
Combine with last week's class. I mean, it could combine with any class. You know, you're basically unwinding the energy body. I would say that it would stand on its own. You could use it to augment for meditation or prayer practice. You could use it to augment any sort of healing practice that you're doing, or it could stand as a healing session unto itself. And so you're basically, you know, you're starting with the outer layer and you're just working your way in. You're deeply cleaning the aura. And the aura is your energetic mold or blueprint that the physical body, emotional body, and mental body eventually follow. So before something physicalizes, it actually is in the energy body, in the aura, before it physicalizes. And so by going through and doing that, you're kind of resetting or rebooting the energy body so that you can set a new potential pattern by going through and doing that. You know, think of it like you know, if you want to be able to take a nice long deep breath, sometimes you have to empty your lungs out before you can take in a nice big deep breath. And sometimes, you know, the environments that we're in and the workplace, or you're at home, or if there's been issues of conflict, or you have a bunch of people grinding on you, or just being in the city, or being in a situation where you're traveling a bunch, you know, all these things get stuck in your energy body, in your aura, and eventually they physicalize. And it doesn't matter if you generated them or if they were generated by somebody else, they eventually physicalize. And so by going through and doing those steps, you know, you're basically unwinding the aura. from the outer layer, and you just keep going in until the inner layer. And so it is a way to deeply release stuck and stagnant energy in the body and allows them to flow out. And so you're basically just flushing things out of the aura and setting a new mold or blueprint for the physical body to follow.
I'm planning to do a liver cleanse.
Mhm.
Are there any oils and protocol you'd recommend?
Liver cleanse, yeah. Things that are good for the liver. There's like kind of long-term and short-term. Long-term use of for the liver is several drops of lemon oil in water on a daily basis can be slowly cleansing and revitalizing to the liver. Rosemary Verbena is always good for the liver. A combination of rosemary verbena and cypress is especially good. That one actually will even reduce cholesterol sometimes by improving liver function. Then you have something like carrot oil, the essential oil of carrot. That can be very cleansing to the liver. Helichrysum is always very good for the liver. And then kind of the grand oil for cleaning up the liver and somewhat of the kidneys as well as Greenland moss. And you would have to take that internal. A few drops in water. It's usually what I give people who are either doing deep work on the liver or cleaning up the effects of medications, chemo, radiation, things like that, where we're really wanting to clean the liver up, kind of quickly. Greenland moss is a very good go-to thing. It's a little bit expensive, but it's not something that you're going to use like all the time. You'll use it and then you might not use it for a while again. And so it's not like there's some oils that you're going to use all the time, like marjoram or basil. You could use that every day for the rest of your life and be good with it. Greenland moss, you could use it a lot, but usually you kind of do some intense work and then you set it aside for a bit. So any of those would work. Whenever you do any sort of detox, always keep in mind that you want to do some lymphatic work along with it. So lymphatic blend, chakra root cleanser, viscosity, even like any of the peppers, that would work. Even cedar, just cedar by itself, really strong dosages of cedar in a bath or rubbed all over the body can be very helpful as well. Just keep the lymph moving. If you feel that lymph nodes are getting blocked up, bay laurel is your best go-to thing to unblock the lymph nodes. And so, treat the liver, but also treat lymphatic function in any sort of detox process. So, okay, I think we are going to, thanks for all the great questions tonight. There was a lot of great questions, and we're gonna move over to the angel class. So you're more than welcome to join us, but we're gonna switch the stream from this one to the next one. I think it got posted. So thanks for joining us tonight, and hope to see you this weekend or at least next Tuesday. And love you guys, and I'll talk to you hopefully in a few minutes or next week.